It's the wild dogs. It's super exciting. Sorry for the flashing picture, everyone. Ferg just had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but they're still here, the dogs. I'm so excited. So, my story that I want to tell you about today is I was standing in the car park after our rehearsal with Mr. James Hendry, having a chat, holding my coffee, and James said, "Well, dogs." And I was like, "What?" And then he pointed, and there were the dogs right where we live. And we moved around, we chased them around. Well, we didn't chase them, but we followed them around. They killed a scrub hare, and then they're now here south of Chelapan. Absolutely fantastic. I'm Noelle Feb, and we have Ferg Clarkson on a camera. He's doing salutes and other sorts of Ferg little bits with his hands saying hello. Okay, so wild dogs. We haven't seen wild dogs in forever. I'm super excited. So guys, don't forget, we are live and interactive. # Safari Live on the Twitter or the YouTube chat. So please send through your questions and comments. I think the first thing I want to talk about African wild dogs, also known as African painted wolves, is they are not related to domesticated dogs. They look like a domesticated dog, but they're not related to them. So about 3 million years ago, wolves and African wild dogs had a common ancestor. Then wolves branched off, and African wild dogs carried on pretty much the way that they were. It is definitely time for a swim, Tristan. The elephants and the wild dogs have it completely correct today. I wish I was rolling around in that mud pan, although it probably smells. It is really, really warm this afternoon. And this is not a sighting we get often of wild dogs cooling themselves down in water. This is pretty special. He's decided, he's like, okay, that's enough. Now he's going to go lie in the shade. So there's many places in Africa where I've worked. I'm just going to reverse here. And in many of those places, there's no air conditioning or electricity to run a fan. And so what we used to do, and there's of course no ice, so what we used to do is we used to get sarongs and dip them in water and then lay them on top of ourselves and then let whatever tiny little breeze was around go over us. So basically what the dogs are doing is by getting in the water like that and then going and laying in the shade, they're optimizing the way to cool down their bodies. It's extremely smart. Oop, there goes another one. So this is the Investec Bengala pack. And I think he's going to go and do the same. So I think let's move. While we wait for James's elephants to stop being quiet and make a little bit more noise so we can help find them, we have maneuvered around a little bit and found a nice little spot to watch our now cooled down and sleeping wild dogs, African wild dogs or African painted wolves. Now, these are one of the Magnificent Seven. So you've got the seven. So wild dogs out of the big five. Lion's my favorite on foot. Leopard's my favorite from a vehicle. But when you take away the big five and you ask what's my favorite predator, it's wild dogs. I love everything about them. I love following them. I love their behavior. I love how they interact with each other. It's my one. I'm really, really, really drawn to them. I've also been very, very lucky in my career to have very magic moments. Everyone, I am very, very, very sorry about all the gremlins that have attacked us today between ourselves and the Mara. So please excuse us, but remember we are live, we are interactive. So anything that happens to us, you all see, and it is actually quite amazing that we manage the technology that we do have to be able to live stream to you from two very, very different locations on the African continent. Now, I'm sitting with you, again, live in the Sabi Sands in South Africa on Djuma. Remember, you can interact with us, hashtag Safari Live on the Twitter or on the YouTube chat, and we love to hear your questions and your comments. And we are still with our beautiful yet extremely hot African painted wolf, the African wild dog, my favorite predator in the entire world. Although that being said, I have not seen jaguars in the Pantanal yet, and I haven't seen tigers in Asia. So it's my favorite African predator. We'll go for that. Now, I'd be interested to know, what is your favorite African predator? Which ones do you prefer? If you want to send that through. It is starting to cool down a teeny little bit. Now, one of the reasons why it's so hot is because of our sun. And one of the reasons why we are all here and these wild dogs are all here is because of our sun. Ooh, Bob, good question. Barb, good question. Sorry, Barb, not Bob, Barb. I'll get back to my sun conversation just now. Barb, you're curious to know if the African wild dog has any traits that are similar to the wolves. So for any of you that were joining us earlier and the gremlins kept attacking Ferg and I, basically what we were saying is that African painted wolf and wolves that you would find in the northern hemisphere had a common ancestor 3 million years ago. And then the domesticated dog branched off of wolves, and African wild dog carrying on doing what they're doing. I've seen a skeleton of one sort of a subspecies of the African wild dog that was at the Sterkfontein caves for a while here in South Africa that was reckoned to be about 2 million years old. Super interesting. But anyway, I digress. So something similar that would be between the African painted wolf and wolves that you would find in parts of, say, North America or what used to occur in Europe, and I believe they're trying to repopulate in places like Germany, would be the pack structure. So you have an alpha male and an alpha female, and they're in charge of the pack. And 9 times out of 10, it's the alpha female is the one that mates and has the little ones, has the pups. So if it's a dog, the babies are called pups. If it's a cat, they're called cubs. Hyena are a slight difference. Hyenas taxonomically fall under Felidae, but they have characteristics of Canidae, so they fall under felines but have characteristics of dogs. But because taxonomically they fall under cats, their babies are called cubs. So with the wild dogs, other than the pack structure, you also have sort of how they hunt would be very similar, where they all work together to hunt. And because they are dogs and they have dog features, one of those features included for hunting would be something like their claw structure. So unlike cats, it's very difficult for them to get their claws stuck in. So basically they run down their prey and nip around to either disembowel it or run it down to exhaustion and then rip it apart and eat it. Got another vehicle that's with me, so please excuse the noise. They are going to carry on and go look for something else. And whilst they carry on, I think let's send you over to Tristan, who's driving around, who I think is trying to get you to a surprise, but we'll have to wait and see. The hounds are moving around a little bit, and they're definitely more full than when we saw them this morning, James. So they killed a little scrub hare for us. We just saw them running around with the head this morning when we caught them after they were by where we live. But their bellies are fuller than what a scrub hare would do, so my guesstimate would be something like impala. Now we're coming to the time of day where the sun is starting to go down a little bit. It's starting to cool off, which means they're going to get moving. And of course, one of the things they do when they get moving is to go to the toilet. As you can see now, this one's a little bit confused about exactly where it wants to go to the toilet and wants to smell its own urine whilst going to the toilet. Interesting female we have going on here. Thank you, madam. Not quite sure. Or is that a male? It's behind the car. No, it is a female. I was right, sorry. It was behind my seat a bit over closer to Ferg. Now this is good news. As we know with predators, they stretch, they yawn, they wake up, they go to the loo. They lie down, they stretch, they yawn, they wake up, they go to the loo. Now there's a very dark male that's coming out now, and I am obsessed with his pigmentation. He's super dark. James and Ferg and I were actually talking about this morning when we saw them on the vehicle. Now this is a male. He's going to go over to where that female urinated, and he's going to smell and urinate on top of her. Shannon, you'd like to know if this pack has any pups with them? Shannon, that is a negative. This pack has no pups with them. This is all adults. I have not, we've been seeing the Investec and Bali breakaways. I've been here since beginning of November. So for about 3 months I've been seeing them. I've never seen them with pups. They do leave us from time to time. It is possible they have small pups somewhere and they have a babysitter that is back with those pups. The pack that I do know has pups is over Aratusa side. And I have not seen that pack in quite some time. I think the last time I saw them was late November, early December. And Tristan and I were actually chatting about it the other day. I feel like soon, if they do start moving a little bit more east, we will be seeing them with the pups running around, because those pups should be, if I remember correctly, should be around 6 months old. But we'll just have to wait and see. I also have not seen any females from this pack lactating. And I also have not seen any of these females from this pack all the time. And if their den site is not by us and we don't have a constant view on them, it can be difficult to give you all the full information. So I just have tiny little puzzle pieces that I have to work with regarding this pack. Madeline, good question. There are wild dogs in the Mara. They're just extremely rare, Madeline, and their numbers are very small. One of the main reasons for that is human-wildlife conflict. The Mara has what's called an open ecosystem, whereby there is no man-made structure to demarc between wild areas and human-habitated areas. And so with human habitants come domesticated dogs, and with that comes disease. So diseases from domesticated dogs transfer very easily over to African wild dogs, things like canine distemper, rabies, tuberculosis, for example, and that affects the population. The other thing is that an African wild dog doesn't care if it's eating a kudu or a cow, or an impala or a goat. So if you're a human and you have your cattle and you have your goats and it is your livelihood, it is the way that you survive, and something like African wild dog is eating them, you are most likely going to get rid of the problem, or what you consider the problem, being the African wild dog. The same goes for lions, the same goes for any sort of wildlife that is impacting on you. So that is one of the main reasons. And unfortunately, in the Masai Mara area, the human habitation has grown to such a point that is now even affecting large lion populations. The marsh pride, for instance, has been severely impacted upon by humans due to there being very little cattle grazing area and having to move the cattle into wilderness areas to graze them. Then the lions eat the cows, and then a lot of people, I say a lot, there were a number of people that would then poison the cattle carcasses to then poison the lions so that that would stop happening. So these are things that happen. These are things that we do have to deal with. In South Africa, in the Sabi Sands, we have semi-open ecosystems mixed with closed ecosystems that allow us a modicum of protection for our wildlife against human populations. It doesn't always work, but we do have a better chance of getting it, I want to say right, but right's not the right word. FC in New York, you would like to know how often wild dogs breed. FC, there's sort of August, September, sometimes as early as July, and they do that once a year. But in times where the environment is not as healthy, sometimes they won't have a litter that year, they'll wait. Ferg's looking over the back of the vehicle for our spider. I'm pretty sure it was a young baboon spider, to be honest with you. This very dark male is uncomfortable. So as they start to wake up from the heat of the day, and also looks like they've eaten something when it was cloudy this morning. It was very overcast and chilly and cloudy this morning. The flies start bothering them a little bit more. And also, wild dogs have severe ADD. They don't sit still very well. So the heat combined with a full belly allows them to sit still a bit more. Because I don't know this pack intimately, I'm trepidatious to say that this is the alpha male, but he seems to be the most agile and moving, so it wouldn't surprise me if that were the case. Now, Mr. James Hendry is over on his own 2 feet, no one else's feet, just his own feet, and he has his makeup bag on his back, and he's busy traversing the deepest, darkest African wilds of the Sabi Sands. So I think let's head over on to him and see if he has any witty commentary to deliver to us today.